All right, let's talk Miami Heat rotation because the season officially starts in just a couple of days, and I have no idea what the hell the rotation is going to be. Now, of course, based off the preseason, we know who the starters will be. You're going to have Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero in your backcourt. Then you're going to have serious contract Jimmy at the 3. You're going to have his Serbian Brate at the 4 and Nikola Jovic. And then the third splash brother in Bam Adebayo at your center. But that being said, Spoelstra historically likes to run 9-man rotations, or at least 9 guys with substantial playing time in the regular season. So that leaves 4 more guys that he could possibly bring off the bench. Now, people say this might be the deepest Heat roster in the Jimmy era. So really, I could see him picking 4 of 7, 8, 9 guys really, because I think there is a real argument that this is the deepest Heat team. I think if I thought about it, I might go to the 2023 season just because of the fit. I feel like you had a lot more versatile players with guys like Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent and Victor Oladipo, who Heat fans forget about a lot. Then, of course, you had Max Strus. So I might go with that as the deepest team. But that being said, this one, it's still up in the air, I would say, just because a lot of their depth is young talent who we're not exactly sure yet if they can contribute in an NBA setting. Although, I guess that's pretty hypocritical of me because in my last post-game video, I said our Summer League squad would win the NBA championship by them damn self because those boys are pretty good. But anyways, that does go to parts of the Heat depth. And I do think those really young guys might get some spurts throughout the season, whether it's due to injury or Spoelstra just sprinkling in a couple minutes here and there for some of these guys. But obviously those young guys, for the most part, won't really be a part of the rotation. But we'll kind of talk about everyone here. We'll talk about who I think will be in the Heat rotation and then who I think should be in the Heat rotation. I should preface that part by saying I understand Erik Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA, one of the best coaches of all time. I've never coached basketball a day in my life, so that being said, Spoelstra knows more than me, but just because Erik Spoelstra knows more than me doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion, because yesterday I posted a video talking about how I wish they would have kept Isaiah Stevens over Drew Smith, and I explained my reasonings. I detailed it very well, and I still had people telling me that I was stupid because Spoelstra knows more than me. What kind of YouTube commentator would I be if I never gave any opinions because Spoelstra knows more than me? Obviously, he knows more than me. I'm not mad at him. He knows more than me. Duh. Like, that's stating the obvious. Doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion. You feel me? Otherwise, I'd be coming here after every single game and saying, oh, well, it's only game 2 and Spoelstra knows more than me, so it is what it is. No one would watch that. Anyways, now that mini rant is done, let's talk into the 4 guys that I think will be locked. I guess I can't even say locks. It's tough to say locks for the rotation because you could convince me otherwise on almost any of these guys, really. But if there was ever going to be a lock coming off the bench, I'm going to say that's Jaime Jaquez. So I'm going to kind of pick 4 guys I think will come off the bench because that will give us a 9-man rotation. Jaime, I think, is a lock because he will be your backup 3, I guess, if you kind of want to look at it like that, because of these 4 guys, Spoelstra kind of uses them at a different position, the ones that I have. So Jaime will be your backup 3, most likely to definitely come off the bench for obvious reasons. A lot of people think he can win 6th man of the year. I think he's talented enough to. I just don't know if the volume will be there for him because he's going to be playing with some other great scorers. But y'all know I like Jaime. I got the signed autograph picture back here. That's my boy Jaime Jaquez Jr. I got a foot fetish for the footwork because that boy is nice with it. Coming into his sophomore season, looks aggressive as ever. The jump shot is looking pretty. We hear the story I bring up all the time that in the USA scrimmages, versus Team USA for the Olympics, there was the stories that Jaime Jaquez was balling out versus that competition. So obviously I'm super excited to see him. Super skilled. I think there's a lot of defensive potential there because of his size and his athleticism. So I think he'll be a great 2-way player and he'll be the main scoring punch off the bench. In addition to the guy who I'll say will be the backup guard, because I don't really have a backup point and shooting guard, so I'll just say the backup guard, and that'll be Duncan Robinson. I think he's also likely to be a lock coming off the bench just because he's getting paid a ton of money. Now, just because a guy gets paid a ton of money doesn't mean that Spo will play him. Tyler Johnson was getting benched back in the day, and he was getting a bag. But anyways, Duncan Robinson is not only getting paid, he's very much improved from 2 seasons ago. Of course, we saw the versatility last year with his driving game and mid-range game and his passing to Bam Adebayo. Their connection obviously continues to be phenomenal, and he showed in the preseason that he's the same player. Obviously, I wish the three-point shooting can get back to what it was 4 years ago, but that's a little bit much to ask for because he was shooting like 46% on high volume. So I don't know if we can get back to that, but as long as it's not as bad as it was 2 years ago where he was getting DNP coach decisions, he was like 33% from 3. We can't have that. But Duncan, if you're at 39, 40%, I know that's still very high, but that's why they paid him. But I don't really want to see any less than 38%. But I'd be okay with that if he's giving some of the other versatility. So they're going to look at him as a scorer too, but also sort of a playmaking hub with Bam Adebayo. I'm assuming just because Duncan's on the bench, Spoelstra will work in a way to get a lot of his minutes with Bam Adebayo as well, because their connection is awesome. Like, you talk most efficient shots of all time, it's Kareem skyhook, Hakeem's dream shake, and then that Duncan Bam dribble handoff. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch. So I do think Duncan is also a lock to come off the bench. Now, these next two are maybe more debatable. The guy that I think is the most likely in this spot is Haywood Highsmith, who he started a lot of times at power forward. So I'm going to kind of say he's their backup forward in this spot, or backup power forward. And I think it'll be Haywood Highsmith just because this Heat team lost a lot of their perimeter defense. Hayward's really the only guy they kept. Of course, over the last couple seasons, you lost Oladipo, you lost Gabe Vincent, you lost Caleb Martin. That's why I think it was so important to retain Haywood Highsmith. And I think they got him on a pretty nice contract too, only $6 million. Not that much for him. So they will look at him to kind of be that lockdown point of attack defender coming off the bench. And the best part is that he shot 40% from 3 last year. So it's not like we got a Andre Roberson or Matisse Thybulle case. No, Haywood Highsmith can knock it down with the best of him. We saw him put the ball on the floor in the preseason, which was phenomenal, because coming into the league 3 years ago, he didn't look like he could dribble a basketball. Now we're seeing him go coast to coast, and he's an excellent backdoor cutter without the ball as well. So there is a little bit of an offense to him where guys just can't play off him. He really is one of the best 3-and-D players in the league. I think every single team would love to have a 3-and-D player the caliber of Haywood Highsmith. So for that reason, I think he's a lock to come off the bench as well. Finally, I guess you might have noticed we haven't had a backup big man yet. This will probably be the most polarizing and controversial topic of the year that we're going to hear a ton, because you're going to have a lot of Heat fans say, where is Khalil Ware? And I think we're going to be asking that too, because I don't have him as the backup big. I don't have him in the rotation immediately. The guy that I do think will be in the rotation is Thomas Bryant, because psych, that boy Thomas Bryant ain't getting no playing time either. Did I scare y'all? That boy is cheeks. He's not going to get no playing time. I actually don't hate Thomas Bryant for a minimum contract guy, 4th-string center. I think he's good. I think he's good in that role. But the guy that I actually think will be the backup big is Kevin Love. Just because Kevin Love's fit on this team is also so perfect in a way, because they weren't a great rebounding team last year. A lot of that is because of the size. I know if you added Khalil Ware, that would kind of help fix that size issue a little bit. But Kevin Love, even though he's not super big, he is an excellent rebounder. So he helps them drastically in that department, and obviously stretching the floor. Well, I guess in the past years, you needed a floor spacer at the 4 because Bam and Jimmy really wasn't shooting. But Jimmy was 40% from 3 last year, and we seen what Bam Adebayo been doing. So maybe they don't need Kevin Love as much offensively anymore. But I guess I should give him some more credit, because he is more than just a floor spacer. He can get into the post, get you some putbacks and stuff like that. He's just a high energy effort hustle player. He'll always draw the occasional charge, which is huge when you're playing against bigger guys like Giannis and Embiid. So I do think he's pretty invaluable to this team. Even though last year he didn't play a lot of minutes when he played, he sort of had what I like to call the Luke Babbitt role, or Myers Leonard role, where you play the first 8 minutes of the first quarter, first 8 minutes of the third quarter, and that's it. I wouldn't imagine Kevin Love plays much more than that, considering he's a year older. I don't see why his playing time would increase. So if anything, he'll still play those 16-ish minutes a night. And of course, that would open some spurts for your other big men. Hopefully it's Khalil Ware over Thomas Bryant, because that will upset Heat fans, including me, if Thomas Bryant gets in over Ware. But Spo's not stupid. I guess what y'all say, he knows what he's doing. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there if that's something we got to worry about. But point is, Kevin Love won't play a ton when he does play, and I'm assuming he might even get some maintenance rest days just because he is getting up there in age. Although I believe he's like the same age as Jimmy Butler, which is crazy. But anyways, I do think that will open the room for Kel'el Ware to get some minutes, just not initially as a part of the rotation. Now, that being said, that's my 9-man rotation. You got the starters with Duncan, Jaime, Haywood, and Kevin Love. I will say, as far as my opinion, it's actually the exact same. That's who I would have as the starters as well. If you would have asked me a month ago, I was pretty strongly in wanting Tyler Hero to come off the bench and just inserting Duncan Robinson into that starting lineup. A lot of that is because Duncan Robinson is elite with Bam Adebayo, as we discussed earlier, and I just think fit-wise it's a lot better. And now you're putting Tyler Hero in that 6-man role in which we know he flourished in, and as a bench unit that's going to need help scoring with Jaime Jaquez, Tyler Hero can kind of have the full range to do whatever he needs to and get his shots up without taking shots out away from Jimmy and Bam, which is kind of what I would like to avoid. That being said, in the preseason, Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier, they looked really, really good together. The other concern with those two was the defense. Obviously, they're two smaller guards, but their defense was decent. Terry Rozier was staying in front of guys. Tyler Hero was playing passing lanes. He was super aggressive on that end, and I was thoroughly impressed with his defense. Specifically, Tyler Hero, I give him a ton of credit there. So if they can keep up that level of play on the defensive end going into the regular season, and Tyler Hero keeps up the improved playmaking and Terry Rozier does the same, I like that starting backcourt. And then coming off the bench, I do agree with those 4 guys there. There's times where I was thinking maybe they could get funky and put like Jovic at the 1 and Terry at the 2, then put Kel'el Ware at the 5, and now you got a starting lineup with Jovic and Bam and Ware, which might be fun to see because I don't know. I'm just tired of seeing the Heat gets killed on the glass, which has been the case for the last several years. And I even listened to Jovic on the 5 Reasons pod, and he said he wants to lead the team in assists. So that tells me he's ready to be a point guard. We know he likes to push pace and have the ball in his hands, but I don't think we'll see any of Jovic as a starting point guard this season, but I can dream. So outside of that dream, I do agree with the starting lineup that I do project to happen. Now, what does that mean for everyone else? Of course, we mentioned Kel'el Ware. He'll get his spot minutes. I think he'll play at least 50 games. I had a prediction, a video about his stats a couple weeks ago. Y'all can check it out. He'll get his run. I just don't think he'll be a consistent part of the rotation immediately. Again, things could change come later in the season. The other young guy that Heat fans love, and the coaching staff too, I'm sure loves, is Pelle Larsson. He seems to be the guy that can do everything, has a nice frame and athleticism, so he is very, very good on the defensive end. And then on the offensive side, he's a great shooter, great finisher, very good facilitator, so he can kind of do everything very good, which is what I've been saying about him the longest time. The exact type of player that the Heat love. It's just, if you play him, who's he playing over? Is he playing over Haywood? He's not playing over Jaime. I don't think he's playing over Duncan. So I don't think he'll be a consistent part. It's going to kind of be a similar theme with the rest of these guys. They all have something that the Heat can provide or can use that they can provide to the Heat. But if you're going to say they should start, you got to say who they should replace. And I just don't think there's anyone between Duncan, Jaime, and Haywood and Love that should get replaced by these guys. Of course, if we look down the depth chart here, you got Josh Richardson. He's not going to start the season completely healthy. He might. He didn't practice today, but he's still dealing with the shoulder injury a little bit, but they're not in a rush to get him back because you also got Alec Burks, who's been a phenomenal shooter in his career. Preseason, he's been awesome. He can obviously provide a role similar to what Duncan was. I just think Duncan is more versatile at this point, and Duncan is 6'8", so he has that for him. That I do think Duncan will play over Alec Burks, but Burks will get his spot minutes when eventually. I don't know the circumstances. Again, it could be injury, it could be foul trouble, who knows, but he will get some run eventually. The other guard that we got to talk about is Drew Smith, who's been the hot topic on this channel amongst Heat fans over the last couple of weeks or so. I do think if the Heat go 10 deep in the season, Drew Smith will be that guy just because they will look at him as that backup point guard, although he's nowhere as good as Isaiah Stevens would have been at that. But I had a whole video about that yesterday, so we're not going to talk about Isaiah Stevens no more unless he balls out in the G League. But they might give Drew Smith some run just to kind of be the guy to bring the ball up the court in the second unit, I guess, and he'll be another a secondary point of attack defender along with Haywood Highsmith. But if they need some spot minutes to give some other guys some rest, Drew Smith will be a guy because they can plug him in and he doesn't make any mistakes, right? And then who else do we got here? We talked about Thomas Bryant. I look at him as a 4-string. I don't really think he'll get any run unless guys are really hurt or something like that. But outside of him, and we talked about Pelle Larsson, you got your two-way guys who I do love. I guess Drew Smith is a two-way guy. But then you also got Josh Christopher. I loved his defense as well. I do think he's a very, very good defender, but obviously he's more known for the offense. He's a guy that likes to have the ball in his hands, although he can be an off-ball player because he's a great shooter. But he is a guy that is better with the ball, I think. And the fit doesn't make a ton of sense when you got a guy like Terry and Tyler and Jimmy and Bam. You want all those guys to have the ball in their hands too. So Josh Christopher won't get a lot of run until guys get hurt or rest later in the season. But a guy that I think could play earlier on is Keshad Johnson. Y'all know Keshad is my boy. I told y'all to buy all the Keshad stock, and it's not too late. The season did not start yet, but once it does, that Keshad stock is going to keep going up and up and up because Keshad Johnson is PJ Tucker with Derrick Jones Jr. athleticism. He's Heat culture personified. He's a very good corner shooter, can spread the floor a little bit more top of the key, even mid-range a little bit. Athletic as all hell, great running in transition, picks the pace up on his team. And the best part of all of him is that he's an elite on-ball defender. Similar to Haywood Highsmith, except way more athletic. He can guard ones or twos or threes and some fours. He can stay in front of his man. He uses his body to not get physically taken advantage of. And he's just an awesome player that screams. Again, he exudes Heat culture. Problem is, though, he's on a two-way. So there is a limited number of days he can play. Now, I do know that if he played every game he's possibly allowed to, that takes us into mid-January. And by that time, the Heat would be allowed to sign him to a standard deal without going over the second apron. Now, of course, that will allow us to sign a guy like Isaiah Stevens to the two-way at that point. But point is, they could play Keshad every game if they want to. I just don't think they will because, I mean, I'm going to post a bold take Heat video within the next, I think actually maybe tomorrow. One of my bold takes will be Keshad Johnson related. It's just a little bit difficult to make that believable. Y'all see in the video because I don't know how much he could play. Because again, whose spot is he going to take? You know, I don't know for sure. But point is, he will be a substantial part of the rotation sooner rather than later. Maybe just not immediately going into the season. Anyways, I've been talking for 17 minutes here, so I'm going to wrap it up. That's my thoughts on the Heat's rotation. Once again, it's Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Jovic, and Bam. Coming off the bench, you got Duncan Robinson, Haywood Highsmith, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Kevin Love. Let me know y'all thoughts down below. Do you agree with me? If not, what would you change? Make sure to leave your thoughts down below. I'll be reading to every single comment and replying to all of them that I can. Like the video and subscribe. I'm gonna grind to hit 6K subs. Let's see if we can do that by the start of 2025. We'll set a new goal for ourselves. So all the support is greatly appreciated. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.